Welcome to episode 50 of the basketball series, Rogue Bogues. Myself and Pro, what's going on?
Bogues, how you doing, brother?
Ready to rock for some questions?
Why not?
Chris, you're up, man. Fire away.
G'day, guys. First one is just something you hear a lot in, again, professional sports, in anything. How often, obviously when it's coming to the end of a player's contract, obviously the media starts to speculate, starts to ask questions about where they might be going in the future. And quite often you hear a lot of the time they say, oh, look, I'm not focusing on that, or I'm not even thinking about it. Is it always something that's I suppose maybe from your point of view, Andrew, because you've probably been in that position before, is it always something that, as much as you might not say that to the media, is it always something that's in the back of your mind? Because obviously you've got your future to think about, obviously if you've got a family, you've got to think about them as well. So is that just something that is just said a lot of the time, or are players genuinely not thinking about it? That's my first question. And second question is, what do you reckon was the biggest thing in terms of like the privileges that you got as an NBA player that you may have taken for granted? And was there a time where, just say, like a player acted up about something and you kind of had to say, hey, mate, do you kind of realise how good we've got things here? Like, you shouldn't be complaining about that sort of thing. I know you kind of touched on a bit a few weeks ago with that incident with that player on the plane and the food, but was that probably the biggest incident you probably thought, like, hey, just like pull your head in sort of thing?
Yeah, good questions. Thanks for those, Chris. Look, I think with your last question when it comes to privileges and whatnot, I think that's probably agree. It's probably every other day in the NBA, right? Like, it's when you're in your bubble, you're always thinking that you might have it at times rougher than someone else or whatnot. So I think, it's just one of those things that you just got to kind of take a step back sometimes with your family and friends and realize that you do have it good, but like, it's like anything, when you're in your bubble and that's all 24/7, whether it's strategically or not, you take things for granted. That's human nature. And you could be in a billionaire club with a bunch of, billionaires at a board meeting every day, and you might think you have it rough. That's the human psyche. And that's the tough part of the NBA and every industry where there is elite talent. So you got to kind of take a step back sometimes and try to realize how good you have it. And I think it just comes down to treating people with respect and whether you think they're below you in the totem pole of life or above you or on your level. I think pleases and thank yous, I've always said, go a long way. Having a conversation with people that, are just everyday workers. It might be someone that, might be the catering company for the food that comes to your facility. It might be even the person that comes and, cleans out the garbage. Just say hello, say, hey, good morning. How you going? I mean, that doesn't take any effort or a lot of time, but I think people appreciate that. And I think that's what sometimes gets lost. And look, you can't always blame the players. Like I said, sometimes you're just so caught in your bubble of like, I just played like shit last night. I'm a little pouty. Coach is on my ass. I'm not getting minutes, all that kind of stuff, right? So you got to realize that there is things going on outside of that bubble, but then people outside of that bubble need to realize that, that young athlete, that guy that's just got drafted, all the pressure, they've got other things they're dealing with. So it's a fair balance, but I think pleases, thank yous, and just being nice, Pro, go a long way, right?
Yeah, I think they do. And a lot of times players they've been in their own bubble since they were about 12 years old, where everything was catered to them, like, everything was taken care of for them in the sense that, like, clothes, shoes, money, going to events, because these guys are the elite of the elite. And a lot of times they're in their own world, in their own vacuum, and they don't really have to talk to people on a regular basis like we do. And that's just sort of the truth. I mean, you came from a different background than like a normal high school kid in the United States would, where like they've got 5 or 6 people, the elite ones, not every player, but the elite ones for sure. They'll have like 5 or 6 people that are sort of around them at all times. And a lot of times they'll do the talking for the player to people. So I think a lot of players lack that sort of communication skill to be able to carry conversations with people, not because they're not intelligent enough to do so, but because they've never really had to do it a lot. And all those people around them that are trying to get sort of in their pockets or look out for them, or both, they sort of shield them from all that. And it ends up now they go on their own when they're in the practice facility or traveling or going on the plane or having to deal with people. Sometimes they struggle with that. Not all the time. Not every player is like that, but I think they do struggle. And with the contract stuff, I think that weighs heavily on anyone's mind. I don't care if you're a player. I don't care if you're a front office. I don't care if you're a coach. If you're there on a last year of your deal and that's all you're thinking about, and you could say all that bullshit you want about, I'm not thinking about it, I'm just thinking of the team, this and that. That is complete bullshit. You're worried about your contract. You're worried about being in the same city and putting down roots a little bit where you could at least breathe a little bit, and you're worried about that. And you're worried about sort of where you sort of lie with the whole organization and how they view you. And are you going to get the right compensation compared to people that are putting up the same numbers in the same position than you are? So I think it does weigh heavily on the mind. But I do think a lot of players do sometimes take advantage of what they have, and they don't really know how good they have it, because when they're out and they have to play in Europe or they have to play in the D League or they have to do something else, basketball-wise, they definitely know that they're getting treated differently. And some teams, I remember with the Mavs, the Mavs are first class with their plane, their food on the plane. I remember we traded a player away to an Eastern Conference team. And we have sea bass, Mavs had sea bass on the plane, steak. I mean, they did it up pretty well. They sent us a picture of a cheeseburger and 5 fries on the side, and that's all they got. And we were like, yeah, hang in there, buddy. Summer's coming soon. But, sometimes teams treat you better than other teams. And, sometimes you don't know how well you have it at one team until you have to experience it in another team or, God forbid, another league or another country.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like I said earlier, it comes down to, just to finish off the point on the privileges, it just comes to, you can't always blame the player because it's a product of their environment. It's a product of their family, their friends, and they don't, it's that ignorance is bliss at times. It's just the unfortunate reality of it. So I think that's one thing. Yeah, the contract stuff, I mean, most people have that in the back of their mind. A good agent will tell you, try not to think about it, block it out, all that kind of stuff. Don't let it distract you, but it's always in the back of your mind. And shit, I had a 5.5 rebound night. Is that going to affect it doesn't affect it immediately, but that's how players think. And you just got to try to, build off of all that and into something for a good season. And then you want any agent, any coach, any trainer for a player is going to say, hey, don't let it distract you. But you're a human being, man. That stuff distracts you because you play bad. You can probably not get as much money as you thought you're going to get. You play okay. You might end up in a city you don't want to go to. There's a lot of different things in a player's mind. And I think the good players can really try to, put it aside. But at the same time, you look at even what Russell Westbrook's going through right now. He's got his contract and his money, but, he must be, it must be a mental toll for him because he's been scapegoated. He's a guy that's everything's his fault. And I don't think he's been great, but I don't think he's the sole reason why the Lakers suck. So that would be, on the flip side, a prime example of a guy that's probably got those distractions. But the one thing you love about Russ is every night he comes and plays as hard as he can. He might not make all his shots. He might not play the best basketball from a strategic point of view at times. He gets lost defensively or whatnot, makes a mistake, but he's going to try. And that's all you can ask for in those situations, Chris. So hope that answers your question. We'll go on to the next one. This is from Ashley. Go ahead, mate.
Good morning, Bogues. Good evening, Pro. How are you all?
Good.
Good.
Congratulations, firstly, episode 50. I hope you carried the bat the half century in cricket. So well done for that.
Appreciate it.
Busy week, mate. Busy week for you. Obviously, the Electoral Commission debacle. I could not believe that. And can I say that is one of the most unbelievable things I've ever read in my life. I'll be honest, I don't necessarily agree with everything you say, but free speech is free speech, and I don't think you're causing riots or anything like that. I could not get over that. So keep fighting the good fight with that stuff, mate, sort of thing. Also, my question is a little bit, and then you had another busy week. You're in Brisbane, I saw on the TV up here in sunny Bris Vegas watching your Sydney Kings.
It wasn't pretty, but
no, it wasn't pretty, mate. Jalen Adams looked great. He was good for my fantasy team, which was fantastic. Yeah. But Xavier Cooks as well was also not good for my fantasy team with that ridiculous.
Oh man, injection. Pro! They threw out our best player with 2 quick tees.
What did he do?
Nothing is the answer, Pro.
Well,
shit.
In Australia, a flagrant/intentional foul is a technical foul. So he had one of those in the first. He had like a grabbing foul in the first 3 minutes, and then 5 minutes later, a ref made a bad call. He was walking away from that ref and said, "Man, this stupid ass ref should be in NBL 1, which is our G League." And the other ref heard it that already called him for the intentional and quick teed him up. And you're just like, look, I get it if it's demonstrative and whatever, but like 2 quick tees is just and that's our best player. Like, fuck, like have some sort of awareness about your referee. But anyway, go on with your question, mate.
Yeah, so my question, I guess, is about the NBL a little bit, and I apologise, Pro, because I know you watch a lot of NBL, so you might be able to get in here. What I've found, especially this year in particular, the NBL style of play has changed a lot from more the FIBA style to more the NBA style. Now, I know with you guys, the Kings, with an American G League head coach, the Wildcats, their system has changed totally. Sort of thing. Yeah, they got the results done last night. What are your thoughts on the systems? Do you agree with that? Firstly, and is that good for our game, because our game in Australia isn't always based upon that athleticism. It's based upon ball movement, team play for our international stuff. Yeah,
it's a good question. It is. I think that's what I like watching the NBL, because you had at least your Perth Wildcats of old from the previous season.
All they ran was flex to death.
Yeah, flex and just we're going to win the offensive board. We're going to be physical. We're going to be this, and they're a little bit of a tweak now. And then you've got teams like Brisbane last couple of seasons were really methodical with Lamanis. It was a really flowing offense where everyone needed to touch it. Then you've got obviously other teams that are figuring things out. So that's why I like the NBL. I think it's got a good balance. I think Cairns are still old school FIBA NBL with Ford running it up there, physical, hold, grab, try to beat you out of the gym. We're a bit more free flowing, way too free flowing.
Way too free flowing. That's another topic altogether.
yeah, but it's just the system we've instilled, where it can be very, very good, but the problem is when it dries up for us, it dries up, and that free flowing offense sometimes can be your Achilles heel, and it can also have you win a game by 30. So I like the balance of the NBL. I think it has started to shift. I think that with, like you said, having American coaches come out here from the NBA, or NBA G League, the G League over there, I think it instills a bit more of that philosophy. So I think having a good mix, I think there's still a lot of great Australian coaches that do a great job in the NBL. So it's just cool to see the strategy battle, the chess game of NBA/G League system, analytics, hoist up a bunch of threes versus a Cairns where they're going to, try to really grind you out, or an old school Perth, or even Melbourne United for the most part. They're picking up full court and they're trapping, and they got 3/4 court traps and half court traps back to the zones. They've got a bunch of junk defenses that they do really well with, and they put a lot of pressure above the half court line. So you don't see that much in the NBA and the G League. So I like it. I'm a fan of just contrasting styles. I think that's what, mono and mono, chess versus chess. I love seeing that, because I think the NBA and Pro and I have spoken about it. At times it can get boring because everyone's trying to do the same fucking thing, and you're just like, oh God, like that's why I like watching Philly sometimes, because at least I'll throw it down to the big fella and try to have him have 40 on the block on you, and even Denver to an extent with Jokic, whereas a lot of these, which is probably arguably 70-80% of the league, is that free-flowing flow offense, hoist up as much threes as we can, like maybe a Dallas versus Golden State. It's just a very similar style, and you don't really see anything where you're like, oh shit, that was a great adjustment or a great play,
100%, I agree. And even last night, watching a little bit of the Perth Illawarra, I don't know if you caught that, it was a lot of Perth just going, 1-4, Cotton, Law, everybody else going to stand on the other side. Yeah, Blanchfield played well and whatever, but yeah, versus Illawarra, which was lots of ball movement. Yeah, lots of on-ball screens, lots of threes still, but it was like lots of movement of the ball, movement of the players.
Yeah, I agree, Pro. I mean, I don't know how much you've watched Pro, but I know you watched some Euro League and you cop some shit from some of our listeners for that, but
no doubt.
The contrasting styles is what I like seeing as a purist. I don't know about you.
Yeah, of course. I'd rather just the old school sort of ball movement. I do like the influx of threes just a little bit. I don't want it just to dominate the game like it has been. And I just want possessions to matter. And it just seems like because we're pushing pace a lot in the NBA level, G League level, and some, it sort of flows over to some, international stuff where they just want to get to the next possession. So not every possession matters. If they throw it away or they have 3 or 4 bad shots in a row, they don't care. They just want to get to the next one, which I'm just not a huge fan of. Like you, I like when they throw it down low, once in a while. They don't have to force feed it down there, but it's good just to sort of have something a little bit different. And it's not something we haven't seen before. It's just something we haven't seen in a while because of now, how analytics is sort of taking control of so many levels of basketball. You even see it in college and even at the high school level. So it's interesting sort of influx.
Yeah, it is. And I just like the balance. So I'd always I like going to a game and seeing like, holy, I haven't seen that done for a while. I haven't seen that before. I haven't seen what the hell was that play they ran, or how have they stemmed the flow of that 10-0 run because they've gone to a half court trap. I like that. I love that. I think the game today has just become we're going to have the same systems, but our talent in that system is going to beat your talent in that system. I think that's what we're seeing a lot of the times. I think it's arguably probably easier to coach today from that point of view, where I don't think there's coaches pro that are going to a late night diner and trying to figure out new plays on a napkin. I think that's kind of the old school mentality of trying to I
think Carlisle. That's about it. But I don't see many.
Rick Majerus was big on that. Like he'd have. He'd go. He had a book called My Life on a Napkin, and where he literally would be at diners drawing up plays and picking his brain for different stuff. And I'm not going to lie, I've been there as well. I've sat at home sometimes and just drawn up some random stuff just to see, what it looked like on paper. And if I coach one day, we'll see. But yeah, the game is changing, and it'll just be interesting to see if this conversation changes in 10 or 15 or 20 years with the amount of data and analytics we get. But on to the next, JF. We're moving on to you. Fire away.
Hey guys. So love the Common Sense episode, Bogues. I was wondering if you do a call-in episode on those kind of things, because there's not a lot of common sense going on, so lots to talk about.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, I'm looking towards it. I've just only got so much time in a day, so we've got this going weekly. But I think look for an announcement in the next couple of months around the podcast. So we're going to ramp it up a little bit in the future, and that'll definitely be down the line.
Absolutely. And I'm just curious too. Just a quick aside, like Djokovic leaving, just absolutely absurd, crazy nonsense. I was just wondering, I know you're one generation removed, but what was kind of the Balkan vibe in the NBA while you were playing? I know Johan Buhai had this big article about all the guys getting together in the bubble, drinking, have a good time during, the rest of the league was doing kind of social justice warrior acting. They were getting together and drinking and having a time. And I was wondering, was that your experience while playing, or is it still a bit, tension there?
No, I mean, for the most part, there isn't. I mean, there were a few guys that were a bit crazier, but generally it's a bond. There's the Balkans and there's just an international bond. So most of the teams that I was on, the international players just organically bonded, because I think they had, even if it was myself and Carlos Delfino, for example, were really good friends on the Milwaukee Bucks, and he's from Argentina, two different cultures, two different countries, but we were still kind of the foreigners. We still kind of didn't really fit in with the day-to-day culture we saw every day in a locker room. So we just naturally bonded. And even as far as, guys from Asia, I was really good friends with Lugmar Bute over from Africa. So, I think you just naturally kind of gravitate towards those guys and have just more of a familiarization with the journeys that we took were somewhat similar. So the Balkans, I mean, I didn't really have any issues with any guys. I got into it with a few guys. Vujicic was one who had some choice words in he's Slovenian, but Serbian-Slovenian. So he had some borderline questionable taunts in Serbian to me. But other than that, it was pretty good. And I had a few friends. I played with Damir Markota, who was Croatian as well, my first couple of seasons. Then Rocco Lenjukic came over. So we hung out a lot on the road, and there is a bond. And I think just being able to probably hang out with guys and hear, the music and the food and the culture and the drinks, I think, especially in that bubble situation, man, I can only imagine how bad mentally that would have been. So I think it's pretty civil for the most part. Every now and then, like anything, like any industry or any team or anything, there can be one shithead that kind of ruins it for everybody. But for the most part, Serbians, Croatians, Slovenians, Montenegrins, Bosnians, they all kind of understood, hey, we've kind of all had a pretty good journey from wherever we've come from, and we can speak the same tongue. It's very, very similar in most of those dialects, and let's just kind of enjoy that while we're over here, and it quelled some homesickness.
Awesome. And just a quick question for basketball-wise. So I see the Celtics are really struggling. Pro, you made them the team of the week last week. They're still really haven't improved over the last two seasons, with Tatum and Brown being the two number one options, or co-number one options. Do you think it's really fixable with them there? I know Bill Simmons says, they need to pass first point guard like Lonzo Ball. That would fix it. But I think they would just pound the ball and just have him stand in the corner anyway. So it wouldn't make a difference, in my opinion. And he's kind of like, they're like Kobe Bryant type players where, they can't play with other wings or guards. They need another like dominant big man to be successful as a team. So just curious.
Bro, get fired up. Go ahead.
No, I think with Tatum, Tatum takes the Kobe-like mentality on offense, but he's not. He's like Johnny Bryant when it comes to defense. He just doesn't have any effort. He doesn't really dig in, and he doesn't do the things that Kobe would do defensively to try to take over a game. Look, offensively, Kobe took his share of bad shots, but he took a lot of simple things. And Tatum, where he falls short is his efficiency at just being consistent, playing hard on both ends of the floor. He's not a very good finisher, and his shot selection is not very good. And until he takes that head on and he actually gives that effort on the defensive end, they're going to be in this situation for a long time. And, Brown shows some flashes of being really good, but again, consistency with him and being smart, playing smart, being simple. Those guys make it really tough on the Celtics because their bad shot after bad shot leads to transition basket after transition basket after transition basket, and the other teams know that they're gonna be around well enough to fuck this thing up. No lead is good enough for them. I've seen them blow 25, 30-point leads because they don't know how to manage the game. And look, you can't say they're young anymore. They've been to like 2 conference finals, if not 3. They've been to a bunch of conference finals. They've been in big playoff games. You learn from those moments. And it seems like they don't. It seems like it's like a glorified AAU team. Marcus Smart, he plays hard as fuck. And he's sort of the stabilizer. They need a lot of stuff over there, and I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they're going to try to make trades. I think that they're fucked because they have no money to spend. Their culture, if you want, I hate that word, but like it's just they're soft. They're fucking soft, and they need to like stop finger pointing, get in the fucking gym, and if they got to fight. They won't because it's today's game, but they need to get in a room. Like we all know that NBA season doesn't start until there's a players only meeting in a locker room, but like they need to figure this shit out because it's not fucking working. You could have 100 pass first point guards, but if those guys don't take it upon themselves to change their mentality of how they play, those 2 guys, Tatum being the one because he's their franchise. Brown's a very good player. He's got nothing on Tatum's talent. And Tatum's got to look in the mirror and say, look, this like cha-cha-cha sidestep bullshit that I do 90% of the time, I got to cut it out of my game, be simple, take the ball to the basket, get to the free throw line, take good shots. When I get 2 on the ball, pass the ball, and I got to defend, and I got to take pride in my defense and not just put all my effort on the offensive end.
And what's frustrating, Pro, is like their best is still pretty. They're competitive when they're firing at all cylinders and their roster's in sync and they're playing their best basketball. They can beat anyone in the league, right? So that's the frustrating thing about being a Celtics fan. I think for most of there's a guy online that posts videos like about this is the life of a Celtic fan. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're hilarious.
No,
it's like the 7 minutes straight of not scoring, all that kind of shit. And it's their best is still. I wouldn't say they're top 3, top 4, but they're they're a top 10 team at their best when they're all firing the way they're supposed to be. But like they'll go and beat a Golden State or a Phoenix, and then they'll lose to Detroit and lose to Indiana. And you're just like, what the hell is going on? It's like they're the ultimate roller coaster team this last couple of seasons where you're like, oh, we're getting it together. We won 3 straight, had a great road trip, won 3 out of 4, and they come home and stink it up for 3 games. And it's just been a continual cycle where they just cannot figure it out. They cannot get consistency. Who are we culturally? There's still kind of that wrestle of, is it Tatum's team? Is it Brown's team? Who are we going to build around? Do we make a trade? And it just, I would just hate to be a Celtics fan at the moment. Like the last 3 years have just been, you're literally a yo-yo every day.
I agree. I totally agree. And consistency is where they're going to start from. And, they're not going to figure it out, probably this season. And
is that a veteran pro? Is that like a mid-level solid vet pro that has a voice in that locker room? Will Tatum and Brown, listen to a guy like that? What is the fix? I don't think Lonzo Ball's a fix. I mean, I love Bill Simmons, but I don't think that's fixing the problem they have there. How do they fix this?
It's going to have to come from themselves, Bogues, because look, how many veteran leaders are there across the league? When you played, like in your heyday, not at the end, but in the middle, I would say there was about 90 leaders in the locker room that people respected, and especially older players. How many are there today? 20? 15?
And you got to factor in that these young guys are getting these big money deals before they've technically earned it. So it's kind of like, hey, old dude on vet minimum deal, shut the fuck up. I'm making $90 million over 5 years. Exactly. So they're going to have to look themselves in the mirror. Look, there have been a lot of players that at some point finally looked themselves in the mirror and said, enough. I have to turn this thing around. I got to change what I'm doing. Not many. There have been a few. But that's what they're going to have to do. And look, those guys work hard in the offseason. I know Tatum's trainer very well, and those guys work. They crush film, all that stuff. And his name's Drew Hanlon. He works out most of the NBA All-Stars out there, and he does a really good job. But it's not just about that. It's going to be about shot selection, where and when, playing hard on both ends of the floor, encouraging my teammates, being a real leader. A leader doesn't mean you average 28 and 9. That's got nothing to do with leadership. Leadership is, and it's not just yelling at people. It's taken by example, sacrificing, looking guys in the face and communicating with them. But it's going to start with his shot. It's going to start with his defense and his shot selection. And because he's got a ton of talent. He's got that Kobe talent. He doesn't have that Kobe killer mentality like Kobe's had since he was 15 years old. But he's got a lot of similar traits. But if he doesn't look himself in the mirror, because no one else is going to do it. No older veteran's going to put his arm around him. There's no Charles Oakleys in the league anymore. There's none of those type guys. It's going to take him looking himself in the mirror and finally turning a corner by himself and saying, you know what, I need to do this today. I do, because it's just going to be this all over again. And every year it's going to be like Groundhog Day. So that's how I think it fixes Bogues. Because you know what, in free agency, they're going to have. They could get rid of Horford's contract, renounce some guys. They're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. I've heard they really like Jalen Brunson. I heard they really like Dorian Finney-Smith. I don't think Finney-Smith's going to leave Dallas, but I think because of the Arenas rule that Brunson might be an issue staying in Dallas, because a lot of teams could offer him more money than Dallas can officially. They can only offer him a certain amount of money based on his contract being a second-round pick. That's what I think. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm almost positive. So, that's what you're looking at. There's not a lot of great players in free agency that they can get. There's not going to be a lot. There's not going to be like a Kawhi Leonard in free agency. There's going to be James Harden, supposedly. The only other team he'll probably go to is Philly. I don't see him going anywhere from Brooklyn or Philly. I don't think he's going to go to a Boston, obviously. So they're not going to get a great player in free agency. They're going to get a good player, but they're not going to get someone who's going to turn their culture around. They got to look themselves in the mirror. This is the new age player. No one's telling them anything. They're not listening to their coach. They're not listening to their agent. They're not listening to people around them that much. They got to make that decision themselves. Agree. It's going to be fun to watch to see where they go, because they're, I doubt they blow it up, but shit, they got to make some tweaks. So we'll see how that goes. Last one, Corey, we're going to try you again.
G'day, boys. Can you hear me?
Gotcha, man. There you go.
Beautiful. It's nice when something works, isn't it, eh?
That's it.
When you can figure it out. Just want to firstly say, massive fan of the show, boys, and the work you boys have done.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Just wanted to ask if you guys have ever experienced maybe someone below you or pointing something out to either of you guys and you've gone, oh, shit, yeah, you're right. That's quite obvious. Just wondering if you boys have ever had an experience like that, and if you could share an experience or something that you boys have learnt.
Oh, man, way to put us on the spot. I've got to think of something quickly.
Nice job.
I take feedback. I don't look at where the feedbacks come from, Corey, so I look at the quality of and the content and the feedback that's coming. I think that's very, very important. So I try to listen to everyone. And look, you might have some stuff that comes from someone that's absolutely wacky, and you just you put it aside. But yeah, of course, there's been many people that are, for me, it's probably, with the amount of injuries I had, it's probably physios and trainers that I've learned a lot from just by listening, I guess the biggest thing I've learned, and that I learned from a trainer with the Milwaukee Bucks at the time, was Mark Boff. So I'll give him a shout out. He's a friend of mine to this day. When I had back issues, as a young kid, it was like back issues, get on a foam roller, roll my back out, get my back massaged, blah, 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 blah. Just touch the back. And he really taught me about, hey, your back issues aren't just massage your back. You gotta have strong hamstrings. Your glutes need to be strong. They need to be loose. So if you have tight glutes and tight hips, that then does what? It pulls on your back. And the big one was the psoas. So the psoas is a muscle that it's just kind of the bottom of your abs and kind of to the side near your hips. There's some stuff in there, psoas and iliacus, and you got to get your thumbs and forefingers in there, and it hurts like hell the first time you do it. So that would be my example. It was like, I really learned and listened to that. So then when I went home and did my recovery, instead of just massaging my back, I'd do everything else. And that's probably an example of listening to someone that in the hierarchy of an NBA roster, just the trainer or whatever is below me technically. I don't look at it that way, but some people do, of some really useful feedback that I still use to this day. So I think you'd be an idiot in my opinion, if you don't have your ears open to people that, you might deem below you, but have been in the league for 10, 15, 20 years in their role, or have been, they've got a degree or whatever. Like you try to listen, and you might not always agree with it, or you might disagree, or you might say, that doesn't work for me. Doing that doesn't work. I don't feel better from it. But you still listen and take in the feedback and move on that way, Pro. What about yourself?
Yeah, Bogues, you know how Dallas was structured. I didn't really have many people that were under me except my interns. And, I did take a lot of feedback from my interns, and I would always ask, hey, what we're doing with drills and things, what do you see? And there was one kid we had my first year. His name was J.D. Luster. He played at Bradley, was from San Diego, and he was a manager at Arizona. And when he was working for us, I was like, hey, what do you guys do at Arizona as far as like getting guys to sort of study their shot? He goes, hey, what we did was we put guys in each spot for we didn't say make this many or take this many. We want you to shoot for 90 seconds to 2 minutes per spot, and just really rep it out to really think and really and don't instruct them, just let them shoot and let them sort of figure it out through sort of like osmosis. And I said, you know what, I'm going to try that. And we did it. And for me, it worked for our guys because it really gave them a chance to think. No one's talking to them. We would instruct them before the spot, hey, get your elbow in or whatever. And these guys would shoot and shoot and shoot. And through osmosis, sort of, they would get better. Just sort of self-analyzation, watching themselves and paying attention to what they're doing. And yeah, I would take comments from them all the time and feedback, and take them out to eat, text them all the time and talk, just because I want to see what we're doing. Not that I needed that all the time, but if there was a little thing that I could pick up. I think the worst part about that league is the egos that are the people sometimes coaching and working there, where they feel as though they're not taking any advice from anyone because they know everything. And I definitely did not take that approach, as you guys know. But I think it was good to sort of get that feedback. But yeah, those are the only guys that were sort of under me that I could take any sort of critiques from. And yeah, I sort of valued it. I did that a couple of times a year.
Yeah, I think it's just good to listen, keep your ears open, and don't buy too much into the totem pole of life, because you can learn shit from people that have made it and people that haven't. A lot of times the people that haven't made it have valuable insight and valuable kind of intel for you, because they can tell you why they didn't make it. They can give you,
yes,
this is how I invested in a business that went bankrupt. This is why it went bankrupt. This is why I didn't make it. This is how I got addicted to XYZ and how I got out of it. So I think everyone has something to offer, and keep your ears open. Preston, we'll get to you next week. I see you waiting there, so we'll get to you next week. We've got to jump on our podcast. Appreciate everyone joining. That's episode 50 Q&A. We'll see you next week, and please give this a share and get more people on board next week. The more questions, the merrier. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.